Good news, boys and girls. The Trump administration has pulled it out at the last moment. We were all worried, right? We were worried about what was going to happen to our country, and people said, just trust Trump, and Trump has proven what a great negotiator he is, right? He has created a great deal for this country. Apparently, it's rather a crappy deal for you if you're an American citizen, but for the country, apparently, it's amazing. That's right. These tariffs, these taxes on every single American are going to stay. They're going to be permanent. That's what winning looks like to you, right? Winning is a 10% tax increase on all products coming in from the United Kingdom. Yay! Well, I do have to admit, Trump said we would win so much we would get tired of winning. And I gotta say, if this is his definition of winning, I'm really effing tired of it at this point. So before we get to CrowdStrike and them laying off 500 employees, we'll talk about the White House for a little bit. Coming directly from the White House, celebrating this permanent tax increase on the American citizens. Doesn't it make you so happy that when you go to buy a product, it's gonna cost you 10% more just so Trump can get that extra money and give tax breaks to the billionaires? Right? The poor people get to pay more taxes so the billionaires can buy like another yacht or something. Are we winning yet? Is this what winning looks like? From the White House, fact sheet, US, UK reach historic trade deal. Establishing a new paradigm for our special relationship. Today, on the 80th anniversary of Victory Day for World War II, President Donald J. Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a historic trade deal providing American companies unprecedented access to the UK markets while bolstering U.S. national security. This is a great deal for America. Crap deal for you. Really fucking bad deal for you. But it's a great deal for America. President Trump, quote, the deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. Quote, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products. Quote, this is now turning out to be really a great deal for both countries. Not so good for you, but for the countries, right? Like, if you look at a country and you assume the success of that country is based off of things like of GDP, right? You know, Elon Musk is worth $400 billion. You can't pay the rent. But, you know, when it all averages out, woohoo, the United States is incredibly successful, right? That's one of the things I want you to think about this, right? As the American corporations get more market access, so their wealthy owners and the stockholders can make more and more money, you're going to be saddled with the taxes to allow that to happen. Prime Minister Starmer said, quote, this is going to boost trade between and across our countries. It's going to not only protect jobs, but create jobs, opening market access. It goes through a lot of this stuff, but the big thing to think about here, the reciprocal tariffs, right? The reciprocal tariffs. What about the tariffs, right? So the tariffs are taxes on the American people, right? If you buy a product from one of these other countries, you pay a 10% tax, right? When you look at the normal bill, when you're buying something and you see that sales tax and that pisses you off a little bit, don't worry, Trump has figured out a solution to that. He's not going to tell you you're paying a 10% tax. That 10% tax is just going to become an invisible tax on every American. Every American is going to pay this tax, but it's going to become so seamless, they don't realize the tax is even there to complain about, right? That is the masterwork of the Trump administration. They understand how the American consumer operates. They understand they can tax the ever-loving shit out of the American consumer, but if the American consumer doesn't see it, then they won't complain. They will just diligently pay their taxes as the wealthy in this country cry. Because don't you understand? I wanted to buy a 200-foot yacht, and I can only afford a 175-foot yacht because of these ridiculous taxes. Good news. Good news. You know, those single parents out there that are barely able to pay the rent, they'll be able to pay the taxes so that we can make sure our wealthy class can buy their 200-foot yachts. Right? The reciprocal tariff rate of 10%, as originally announced on Liberation Day, is in effect. The 10% tax on anything coming in from the UK is going to continue, and it appears to be permanent. Beyond that, the United States will agree to an alternative arrangement for the Section 232 tariffs on UK autos. Under the deal, the first 100,000 vehicles imported to the US by UK car manufacturers each year are subject to the reciprocal rate of 10%. So again, if you're going to buy a Land Rover, if you're going to buy a Jaguar, if you're going to buy one of those vehicles, 10% tariff on that, right? You look at those kind of vehicles, they probably start at about $40,000, right? Trump is going to grab $4,000 in taxes because you want to buy a vehicle from the UK. And any additional vehicles each year are subject to the 25% rate. So if they sell over 100,000 vehicles in the United States, that means Trump is going to demand you pay 25% in taxes. And that's considered a win. That's considered a win. Oh, golly. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. If this is the win, right? If this is the type of trade negotiation that Trump is just rearing to show the American public what a great business person he is, then we are absolutely abjectly screwed, right? Again, so many products come in from the rest of the world. Even if you want to change the supply chain, it takes years and years and years to do. Again, I get a lot of those numbskulls out there like, yeah, this is what we have to do. Look. Try to get a new bathroom put into your house, right? Let's say you have a basement, and you're like, you know what? I think a second bathroom in this basement would make a lot of sense. Okay, boys and girls, you now go get the financing for that bathroom, get the permits for that bathroom, find the contractors for that bathroom, build out that bathroom, get the inspections done for the bathroom, and go through that entire process. Again, and anybody that's done home renovations, especially legally, knows what that process looks like. You're like, what the fucking hell? It's a bathroom, not a nuclear reactor. What are we doing here? Right? It will take months to get a bathroom put in to your house. And now imagine if you're large corporations, and again, you're talking about warehouses, you're talking about manufacturing facilities, you're talking about logistics systems, and the whole 9 yards. How long do you think that takes to create once they decide that it makes sense to create those things? Years and years and years and years, right? Is Trump giving people years to figure this crap out? No, because he's an over-caffeinated, senile old loser baby that wants it right now. Again, I'll win in a day, right? It's the same shit you hear from 5-year-olds. And so this is what we hear is the winning policy. Theoretically, we're going to expand opportunities for American companies in the United Kingdom. Opportunities, boys and girls. Opportunities. There is the possibility for more sales to the UK. How well that'll work out at the end of the day, who the hell knows? We'll find out. We will find out. So that's the latest thing. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting that this is considered the winning deal out of the Trump administration, because that's what we've heard, right? What we've heard is, there are so many countries that are on their knees, on bended knees, to grovel to Trump, to grovel and sputter, because it's all about Trump, It's all about Trump. It's not about the American citizens. Sure as shit not about this country. It's about groveling towards Trump. It's what we've heard this entire time, is there's so many of these countries that are groveling to Trump so that they can solve the problem with the insanity that he's created. And if you look at it, again, go look at the U.S.-UK Reach Historic Agreement from the White House, literally from the White House, and ask yourself, how is this making your life better? Is your life better since Trump got elected? That's going to be the question. Trump's economy. Anyways, again, I talk about all this stuff because I talk to my students every Monday between 1 to 5 p.m. I do 4 to 6 of these meetings, so I do about 100 per month. And they're all, Eli, how do I get a job? And as I will keep reminding people, very few of them are about tech stacks and solving problems and which database to use. Almost all of them is job. How do I get a job? And what I'm just trying to explain to people right now is that we are in the middle of an economic disaster. Our economy is slipping sideways. What'll happen past that? Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? So go. Give your boss an apple, or do something nice for your boss, because the only thing worse than a crappy job is no job. The only thing worse than no job is long-term unemployment. The only thing worse than long-term unemployment is long-term unemployment during a Trump administration where they want to rip away all the social safety nets. That's right, truck drivers. Not only are you losing your jobs because of Trump's economy, but when you go to get things like unemployment, there will be even fewer of those benefits because you shouldn't be such a lazy bastard. You should get back to work. Why are all of these able-bodied adults not working? Because you shredded the fucking economy. Anyways, things to consider. Again, things to look at and a question. Anyways, as you may or may not know, I'm known as Eli the Computer Guy. My pride and joy is something called silicondojo.com. Basically, what if high-quality technology education was simply as accessible as water? So you can go there. We have self-study classes that are completely free for you to take. We have Introduction to Programming, Introduction to Python, SQL, something called the Bottle Web App Framework. Again, I do one-on-one conversations with students once a week where I sit there and talk about jobs. Anyways. You got the question, I'll answer the damn thing. And then I'm also doing group sessions. So tomorrow we're having the CEO of a development company come on to our Zoom session. And basically we'll have him there for 2 hours. We'll be able to have a conversation. You folks will be able to ask questions. And that's where I bring in real people from the technology world. So a lot of people say, oh, Eli's so arrogant and egotistical. It's like, okay, fine, fair enough. I will bring in other people so that they can crush your dreams. I know, it gets tiring day after day. You come and Eli the Computer Guy crushes your stupid ass hopes and dreams. I can get why that is very frustrating and tedious to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outsource that work to my guests so that they can crush your stupid ass hopes and dreams. I mean, I can be a deal maker too. Anywho, what we're talking about today, though, is CrowdStrike announcing 5% job cuts. So they are going to be getting rid of 500 employees because of AI. At least they're saying it's because of AI. I would argue, I think this is more about efficiency. Again, it's interesting. So it's 2025. I started technology in 1996. And in the old days, again, technology professionals were supposed to solve problems with technology. Again, the entire reason we got hired was either to help companies ship more widgets or help companies make more money per widget shipped. That was literally what our job is. Whether you're an Active Directory administrator or an Exchange administrator or a web administrator or whatever else, really at the end of the day, it was about shipping product or getting more value out of the product shipped, and that's how it was. Right. The interesting thing, again, over the past 10 or 15 years, with a world of 1% interest rates, basically there's been so much investment into the tech world. Lots of people have been getting hired, and they've been getting hired at such a rate and to such a degree. Literally, one of the most controversial statements that I make, right? When you come to this channel, when you listen to me talk, one of the most controversial statements that I make is not about Trump, nor is it about Biden, nor is it about Pelosi, nor is it about Fauci. No. You know the most controversial thing that I say? Is that technology professionals solve problems with technology. You do not know how many people with a straight face, are like, Eli, you don't understand the modern world of technology. I'm like, dude, what is there not to understand? Right? Like there's an argument about whether you should use MySQL or Postgres. Like Postgres versus MySQL. That's an argument. Again, relational database versus NoSQL database, that's an argument. AWS versus Azure, that's an argument. That technology professionals should solve problems with technology, yeah, there's not really an argument there. That's what we do. But the curious thing that I found is over the past number of years, that really is one of those things that a lot of technology professionals seem to miss. It's not one of the things that's actually banged into their heads anymore. Whatever the hell they're getting, whatever they're getting their ratings or whatever off of, when they get their yearly reviews, it doesn't actually seem to be bringing more money to the company. And I do find it to be fascinating. Again, an interesting thing being here in Asheville, North Carolina, is I'm used to, or was used to, I guess. I've been here about 4.5 years now, but I was used to before being around entrepreneurs and business leaders. So talking about technology, again, talking about things like technology and ROI was just the normal thing. Again, why go with Exchange Server versus Office 365? Why go with Azure over AWS? Why do you go with AWS versus DigitalOcean? Half the conversation is technical and half the conversation is money, like the financial reasons to do it. One of the interesting things coming here to Asheville, North Carolina is we have very few real tech companies or startups or things like that, though we have an absolute metric crap ton of tech employees, right? All of these remote workers that have been paid a lot of money decided, hey, we're going to come to the mountains, right? So anyways, the interesting thing is, when I talk with a lot of these tech employees, one of the things that really set me back is how few of them understand the businesses that they're in. Like, they don't understand the business. They don't understand where their company fits within the overall industry. They don't understand, the revenue, the profit drivers, that type of thing. They literally understand almost nothing about the business itself. And it actually is something that's quite fascinating for me. And I think it's going to bite a lot of people in the ass, because I think so many people nowadays, they've been hired and they've had jobs not because they add to the company's bottom line, but because of a lot of other insanity going on. Again, one of the big issues that we've seen in the tech world is literally technology companies hiring people just to take them off the table, or because they might need them in the future, right? If you have a company and you might be growing and you have a lot of investment money, right? You sit there and you go, look, we don't need a cybersecurity professional now. We don't need an LLM professional now, or whatever else. But in 3 months, we might. And we don't want to be caught with our hands tied because we can't find a professional in a couple months when we might need them. So let's hire them now so that we have them if we need them in the future. And think about this with how many companies, how many employees are in these companies, not because they're actually needed now, but because they might be needed in the future. And that's actually a good scenario. A lot of these employees are just there essentially because they're there. So anyways, one of the interesting things that come up with this whole artificial intelligence thing is this whole idea now that AI can do coders' jobs, right? And AI can do your job, ergo, why should we continue to pay you? And so now a lot of these companies are actually dumping their employees. I would argue, though, that with this, again, when we talk about artificial intelligence, the thing you have to realize about AI is these are just systems. Again, the tech industry gets new systems every couple of years. Again, we get better database systems, we get better web systems, we get better storage systems. Like nobody goes wild over data lakes. Again, it's weird, like with AI, everybody's like, oh my God, AI. And like, When was the last time you saw somebody get all hot and bothered about a data lake? Oh my God, did you see that data lake? I wish I had a data lake like that data lake. And nobody gives a shit about data lakes. Data lakes are very, very fucking significant, but nobody cares, right? Because for some reason, when you say AI, everybody gets excited, and we say data lake, everybody goes to sleep, right? Just how it is, right? But that's the thing. It's like with data storage and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, every couple of years, you get to this new product or service or whatever comes through. Again, like one of the things I think is interesting now is like even with like ticketing systems. So for my little Silicon Dojo thing, I'm probably gonna start using Jira. By the way, it's just like how easy it is to have like ticketing and work order systems. Again, when I had my business, like when we shut down originally 2009, you have to understand, so 15, 16 years ago, if you wanted a decent work order system, it was gonna cost you a lot of money, plus you needed licenses to other things, right? It was gonna cost you $1,000 plus $50 per head, plus you're going to need MS SQL, plus you're gonna need MS Exchange, plus you're gonna need the licenses to all that kind of stuff. Like having a work order system back in 2009, holy hell. Should not have been that difficult. Should not have been that difficult. But it was. There just were not off the shelf open source work order systems back then. Again, fast forward 16 years, you know, if you're starting your business now and you need a work order ticket tracking system, my God, there's just piles and piles and piles of them, right? And so the curious thing is as time has gone by is we have more of these systems that have come out to make work more efficient. Again, to be able to track work, to be able to make work more efficient, the whole 9 yards. I think one of the interesting issues though is what happens when you're hiring people not for an ROI for the business, but because you might need them in the future. What happens when you have asses in seats that you don't really know what to do with? How efficient do you need systems to be when a chunk of your employees are playing solitaire all day or going into the nap pods? Right, think about it. Right, you don't. Right? Are you making your systems more efficient when a chunk of your employees really aren't doing a goddamn thing anyway? Probably not. I think the interesting thing now, as interest rates go up, again, we are in this economic kerfuffle. Again, things are starting to slide sideways. I think one of the big things for a lot of these corporations is beyond AI, is just simply making their systems more efficient, verifying that their employees are working to certain processes, making sure they're doing a full day's job, and the whole 9 yards. Again, it's really interesting to hear employees and they start screaming, "How dare you want me to work 8 hours a day? That's ridiculous." It's like, oh, well, it's so ridiculous you can quit in this job market. It's amazing how much work you can squeeze out of that employee when they know they don't have very many options, right? Again, it's like that was like the great resignation. Remember the great resignation from like 2 or 3 years ago? And I was talking about how stupid that was. Hey, remember somebody saying how stupid that was? Anyways, right? Well, that's the thing. When your boss demands that you actually do your job and you can walk out and literally get a pay raise somewhere else within a week, right? You get a lot of power there. Here's the thing, what happens when you walk out and you may be facing long-term unemployment, again, with an ever-shrinking social safety net. It's amazing how much extra work you can get squeezed out of people. But one of the things that I would point out here is, again, for CEOs and for executives, they have to be careful with the narrative. They have to be careful with the story that they tell. Just like you have to be careful with the story that gets told. Again, why did you have a year gap in your experience? You know, I would say, again, if you get laid off, you should become a consultant the next day. Oh yeah, well, I left my job here to become a consultant. And then I've been a consultant for the past year and a half, but I don't really like QuickBooks and I don't really like business development. I don't really like these other things. So although being a consultant actually is very fulfilling to me, I would prefer that biz dev and accounting is handled by somebody else and I could just focus on the types of work that I'm good at. That is a story. I wasn't unemployable for a year and a half. I was a successful consultant, happy with what I'm doing. Again, that's the kind of story that you have to tell. Again, when the economy goes sideways, great time to go to university, right? You don't say that you got laid off. You say, oh yeah, I left my job at this, and that's when I went into my master's degree program. It's a nice story. They had a job, they understand where they want to go, they go into a master's degree program. Think about that story, right? So much is stories, right? And the big thing to understand with CEOs and executives is they have stories to spin too, right? They have to talk to their investors and the stockholders. They also have to spin stories for the employees so that it makes it sound good, right? Because they have to be masters of the universe. One of the big things in the tech world right now is that these people are masters of the universe. And so masters of the universe wouldn't be doing asininely stupid ass crap and basically burning money now, would they? So if they change what they're doing, there has to be a good story that makes it sound good, right? So basically, remember, if these executives come out and they say, we have not been doing our proper job for the past 5 years. We have let the employees, basically violate the systems that were supposed to be created in order to make sure everybody was communicating properly. We have not implemented proper ticket tracking and work order systems. Our managers have not been supervising properly to make sure employees have been working efficiently in the whole 9 yards, right? Imagine if they came out and they said that. Imagine if your CEO came out and literally said they had been failing at their job for the past 5 years. How do you think the investors would feel about that? How do you think you would feel about that? How confident in your company or in your executives would you feel if they just came out and admitted to you that they have just been a miserable failure for years at this point in time because the money was so easy to get? They were more focused on spending somebody else's money than actually doing their own good goddamn jobs. Oh, that can't happen, right? Oh, that's a bad story. That's a bad story. So what if we can make a better story? What if we can make a better story? What if we can make a better story that kind of, sorta, will bring all of that together? But we're gonna slap our story with AI, right? We are now going to be laying off 5% of our employees. We are now going to be laying off a chunk of our employees, not because the CEO has been failing at their job for years, but because AI has improved efficiency to such a degree we no longer need these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees. Right? By labeling all of this AI, what they can do is they can come in, they can just get rid of all the waste, but they can do it in such a way where they don't get any blame. We are simply making our company more efficient based off of the current systems that exist that didn't exist a couple of years ago. And so, we really are good CEOs. We are really good executives. And so I think that's the big thing that we're going to be seeing now is everything is going to get slapped with this label of AI. So when the layoffs occur, it's going to be said AI, 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 because what that means, right, the story that they're trying to tell is that their CEO isn't a failure. Their CEO is a visionary. Their CEO is on the cutting edge of modern technology. So we're deploying this fancy AI stuff that allows us to eliminate the 500 employees, right? It's not that they failed at their job for so long, you had 500, 1,000, 10,000 employees as fat. It's that, we're using this new technology. And that's where we take a look. It's a company like CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company. They were the ones responsible for taking down all those airline computers not too long ago. From CNBC, CrowdStrike announces 5% job cuts, says AI is reshaping every industry. And again, look at this. Whenever you see the AI thing, just ask yourself for a second. If one of these masters of the universe came out and simply said, we had to do a reorganization of management because we realized our managers were not doing a good job. Because again, being a manager is a job. Being a coder is a job. Being a sysadmin is a job. Being a manager is a job. You can have a crap coder, and yes, I'll admit it, you can have a crap manager. Sometimes your managers are crap. Sometimes the systems your managers are part of are crap, and they need to be, reassessed and that type of thing. So imagine if these executives came out and they said, we are redoing, our management org chart in order to improve the efficiency of our company. Do you think anybody would be clapping? Do you think anybody would be clapping, giving them, oh wow, that's so amazing? But again, imagine if you're basically doing the same type of thing. You AI wash it. You AI wash it. Cybersecurity software maker CrowdStrike said Wednesday it plans to lay off 500 employees, representing about 5% of its workforce. A move, CEO George Kurtz said, reflects advances in artificial intelligence and his abject failure for the past 5 years. I added that last bit. Whenever you hear AI, just substitute with abject failure for the past 5 years. Quote, AI has always been foundational to how we operate, Kurtz wrote in a memo, including a securities filing. AI flattens our hiring curve and helps us innovate from idea to product faster. It streamlines go-to-market, improves customer outcomes, and drives efficiencies across both the front and back office. AI is a force multiplier throughout the business. In the past month, leaders of Box, Duolingo, and Shopify have all directed employees to adopt AI tools across departments. CrowdStrike also reaffirmed its forecast for its current fiscal year, which ends in January, and said it expects to continue hiring, quote, in key strategic areas for the rest of the year. The company is working to expand its go-to-market and customer success organizations as it aims to generate $10 billion in annualized revenue. Kurtz said. In February, CrowdStrike reported 25% increase in revenue to $1.06 billion, but it was the second quarter in a row with a net loss. And again, you'll notice this when I talk about a lot of these companies, right? Again, it was like Twitter back in the old days, right? Twitter made $5 billion in a year. Yay! They spent $5.5 billion. Boo! Right? Again, even when the revenue is high, right? Their expenses still outstrip their revenue. And this has been one of the big problems, right? In this investor-led economy, investors are willing to throw so much money on the table that even if you're not making a profit, even if you're burning money, you still get more investor money, right? Investor money still pays employee salaries, still pays for the real estate, still pays for the yachts and the whole 9 yards, right? Cash is cash. The issue is we are now in this environment where investors are getting a little bit more finicky. They want to start seeing things like, profit. And so then you have companies like this, right? Where the CEO of CrowdStrike, I mean, think about this. CrowdStrike reported a 25% increase in revenue to $1.06 billion. In one quarter, they made over $1 billion. Over $1 billion in a quarter. But it was the second quarter in a row with a net loss. So again, is this so much AI, or is this so much they really need to cut fat and come up with a story that investors like? Quote, we are realigning parts of our business to continue scaling with focus and discipline, Kurtz wrote. Anyways, that's basically how it's going. If we take a look at Duolingo is another of these AI-focused companies. So Duolingo is, they deal with, learning languages. If you want to learn a language, you can use Duolingo. Duolingo announced plans this week to replace contractors with AI and become an AI-first company, a move that journalist Brian Merchant pointed to as a sign that the AI jobs crisis, quote, is here now. Again, is it the AI jobs crisis, or is it a lot of crappy employees probably should have been fired a long time ago, or not hired in the first place? In fact, Merchant spoke to a former Duolingo contractor who said that this isn't even a new policy. The company cut around 10% of its contractor workforce at the end of 2023, and Merchant said there was another round of cuts in October 2024. In both cases, contractors, first translators, then writers, were replaced with AI. So that's going on with Duolingo. They're replacing people with AI now. And so, yeah, it'll be curious to see how this works out at the end of the day. Again, more and more of these companies are going to start seeing more and more layoffs. Again, there was already 50,000. There's already like 50,000 tech layoffs this year, right? I think it was before Intel, right? Intel's laying off 21,000 people. There were 50,000 layoffs before that. More and more of these tech companies are going to be doing more and more layoffs. And so the big question that you need to be asking yourself is, again, what value do you bring the company? What value do you bring the organization? What can you do that some kind of computer system can't do? Again, like let's say with this whole AI thing, well, when you think about AI, I mean, there's natural language processing, there's decision-making capabilities, there's a lot of stuff in there. Right? And again, is it being run by some fancy LLM or multimodal model? Or is it basically just being run by some crappy database on the back end with an if-else statement? Again, you know, the only thing sadder than losing your job to AI is losing your job to an if-else statement. And let's be honest, most of these people are probably losing their jobs to if-else statements. All right? So one of the questions you have to really ask yourself, again, in this modern environment, is how are you actually valuable to the company? What do you bring to the company that goes beyond an if-else statement? What do you bring to the company that goes beyond an LLM so that even when they are going to be reassessing their budgets and all that kind of stuff, your ass doesn't get kicked out the door? Because I have talked with enough employees nowadays, and it flabbergasts me. And I come here and I'm snarky, I'm all rah, rah, rah. Right? That's what I do, right? I come here, again, if I didn't do this all the time, rah, you wouldn't watch, right? Oh, Eli just likes to sit here and talk for an hour. And I was like, yeah, well, if I didn't do that, you'd have nothing to listen to, bucko. So anyways, right? So I get very raw, but it's curious for me. Again, when I see so much of what's going on with like tech employees, again, beyond the raw and the snark, it is just this question of like, what the hell are we doing as an industry? When the most controversial statement that I can make is that technology professionals solve problems with technology, it's like, what's going on with a generation of technology professionals? You know, again, I've talked about this before. I had the one guy come up to me, ask me like, how did I figure out what problems to solve? And they looked at him, it's like, I thought you were a professional. It's like, oh yeah, 3 years. You've been a professional 3 years. He'd been working as a coder. But it was all front end. He was all given stuff to do. And he basically just paint by numbers shit and send it back to him. Like the skill of finding issues in the systems, figuring out how those problems can be fixed, and then deploying that solution was something that just wasn't, it wasn't in the boot camp, it wasn't in 3 years of experience, it wasn't like we have this generation of technology professionals that just go and they really kind of sort of think that their only job is to slap code together pretty fucking half-assed from what I can see, and that for that they should be getting paid six-figure salaries and getting equity in startup companies and the whole 9 yards. And so the issue is again, beyond the AI, what happens during this kind of economic disaster when companies need to cut the fat? They need to cut the waste. And the sad part is the people that they're going to cut don't even realize that they're waste. They don't even realize that they're the fat. They think, right? In their screwed up worldview, they think that they're actually valuable to the company when, again, a macro can probably replace them. That's what concerns me with all of this kind of stuff. And that's where you need to be thinking about, again, as a professional, what value are you bringing to the company? You know, when I had the whiteboard or whatever, that's what I used to talk about with doing my classes, right? The real money is on the whiteboard, right? The real money, like what we actually get. I don't know what the fuck I get paid. I don't know what the fuck you get paid for. What I got paid for, right, is designing the solutions. It's talking to all the vested interests. It's understanding the resources for the project. It's coming up with an appropriate solution and then working through to actually deploy that appropriate solution. And then once that solution has been deployed, verifying that it's operating the way that it's supposed to be operating, and then adjusting the system, adding, subtracting, whatever else, in order to make sure that it brings the most value to the end user as possible. Right? That's not Python, and that's not C# or Swift or frameworks or any of that. But that's what we do. That is the value that a technology professional brings to a company. If all you can do is code, why do you think you wouldn't get replaced by a system? Again, one of the interesting things to be thinking about with so much of this AI is just considering what the AI is similar to in a lot of ways. It's like with web design, right? You can still make a lot of money in web design, even with Wix out there and themes and templates and all that kind of crap, right? If you're good at web design, you can still make a lot of money with web design. And that was the idea, right? Again, screw AI. Think about themes, right? You can go to websites now. Again, you can go to websites 12 years ago, and this was supposed to destroy web design. You go to the websites, and for $30, you can buy a full-fledged theme. All the CSS, all the JavaScript, everything else. You basically just dump in the content, and then it's got all the design, all that kind of stuff. Right? Themes should have destroyed it, or templates should have destroyed web design. But the reality is, right, what really happened is good web designers basically used themes and templates for their lower value clients so that they're able to deploy faster and make more money. It's like, oh, you don't have a lot of money, you don't have $100,000 or whatever. Okay, fine. We can have the $5,000 package, right? So they buy the $30 template. They add all the content, they do all the conversations and all that kind of stuff. And with that $30 template, they can just ship that in a day or two, and they're making a couple $1,000s per day for doing that kind of work. Again, the customer at the end of the day is happy. If you hand the average CEO a template and tell them, you don't have to hire a web designer, just use this template, they're not going to know what to do. They're not going to know what to do, right? But templates, right? But it allowed web developers to become more efficient. So the not so good web developers, right? The web developers that were just coasting along, a lot of them, there's not a lot of work there anymore. But for the people that were focused on the business, focused on providing value to the customer, they were able to use those kind of templates and in order to continue to be successful. And then the higher end web developers, the designers, again, if you want a custom website for BMW, if you want a custom website for Gucci or something like that, you're not going to use some crappy ass theme or template. You're going to go and you're going to do customer research. You're going to find out the perfect font and the perfect colors and the perfect design, and you're going to build that from the ground up. And that's going to be a $100,000 website, right? And think about it, right? That's basically, right? You plug into a prompt. You plug into a prompt what you want, you get a solution to pop up. Again, whether it's AI with an LLM or whether it's just a database with a whole bunch of templates with tags on them, right? You're basically doing the same type of thing. And I think that's going to be the big thing for a lot of folks going forward, is that whole question of like, what value are you fully bringing to the organization? And making sure too that the organization knows you want to bring them value. It's like with office politics. One of the big things, again, another thing, one of my the second most controversial thing that I say is that you need to focus on office politics, right? You need to know how the CEO's kid is doing in lacrosse. You need to know the name of the secretary's dog and ask what cute thing their dog did yesterday, right? You need to know the salespeople and the rest of it. And the reason for that too is that then the decision makers in the company know that you want to be a valued member of the team. One of the big issues that we've had in the technology world for so many years is that we have all these technology professionals that are complete mercenaries, right? Every year or two, they leave the company and they go off to somewhere else, right? And again, we've heard, and it has been true for a long time, it's better to go to another company to get an increased salary versus trying to get a pay raise at your company, right? Your company may offer you a 5% pay raise. Going to an entirely another company might give you a 25% pay raise. That's just how it's been. But the problem is when you're a mercenary like that, right, you have no real connection to the company. You have no really caring the company. You have no, right? And so one of the big issues then is when the executives and the rest of it are looking for who the hell to fire, right? They're going to fire and they're going to lay off the people that aren't vested in the company. Right? Look, this person's been a pain in the ass. This person has been telling me for how long how much they're really worth. It's about time they go and prove that to somebody. Right? Whereas if you've been going, you've been schmoozing, you've been going out to have a beer every once in a while with everybody, having coffee, bringing in some cake when it's some people's birthdays, right? That shows that you're actually part of the company. I am willing to do the work that is required to make the company successful. And think about this for a second. Again, if you're in that management position and you're looking down and you got a team of 8 people, and one of them is your Swift developer, and one of them is your C# developer, and one of your systems person, and one of them is the person that does what is required to make the business successful. Who is the last person in that group that you are going to want to get rid of, right? They'll do what's required to make the company successful, and they also know Java, C#, whatever else, right? They are working to make the company successful, and to do that, they happen to be building our code base out. Which kind of employee do you think is going to continue to have a job at that company? Things to be thinking about, things to consider. Because CrowdStrike, firing people because of AI, again, because of their failing CEO. Duolingo, firing people because of AI, right? All of these companies, firing people because of AI. It's a big question for you to be looking around. Is this really AI? Is this really AI? Or are the executives just cleaning up the mess they created over the past 5 years to decade? And then how do you make sure you're not part that gets swept out? So there you go. There you go. Some things to ponder, some things to think about. More layoffs. That's right. In Trump's economy, higher permanent taxes, more layoffs, and a weakened safety net. If that is just not a metaphor for modern America, by God, I just don't know what is. So anyways, put your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all at the next video.